Welcome everyone. Thank you, Chris. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Illinois FAST Center Services, helping clients obtain critical funding. My name is Daryl Thomas. I'm the program manager for the Illinois P-TECH program. This particular session is under the P-TECH track. Our goal here today specifically is to learn how to help our clients, P-TECH clients, those are interested in doing government contracting, access the critical funding that they need through SBIR, STTR, and other innovative ways that the government uses to procure technology and innovation. And so we're really excited to have Shelley Mays here for us. I hope I pronounced your name right.
You did.
Shelley Mays with the University of Illinois Research Park. We are so thankful for her for this session, and this is an interactive session. It's being recorded. We ask that if you have questions, please raise your hand or put your questions in chat, and we will try to do our level best to acknowledge you and make sure your questions are asked or answered in a timely manner. At this time, I will turn the rest of the presentation over to Shelley, and I will monitor between Chris Hollingsworth and I will monitor the chat for you, okay? Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Daryl. I really appreciate this opportunity to present. We are always looking for partners to work with throughout the state to help bring awareness and increase the participation in the SBIR STTR program. So I look forward to this opportunity to show you kind of what the services we have to offer and how it can benefit your clients. Let me share my screen here. There we go. Everybody see that okay? Okay, great.
Yes, looks good.
Great. So I'm going to talk to you about the FAST Center, which is located at University of Illinois, and the services that we offer and how we can help your clients obtain critical funding through the SBIR STTR program. So just kind of an overview of what I was going to present. I'm going to talk specifically about what the SBIR program is and what it offers. I'm going to talk a little bit about who are good candidates for the program to kind of help you decide who would be good clients to recommend to participate in the SBIR program. And then more specifically about the Illinois FAST Center and what kind of services we can offer to help those clients. So looking at the SBIR STTR program, often you hear it referred to as America's Seed Fund. It's the largest government fund to help small businesses get started. Also, I'm going to say SBIR most of the time. It's SBIR and STTR that participate in it. You'll often hear me use them interchangeably. Both programs are involved in pretty much the same thing with some slight differences. So the SBIR is Small Business Innovation Research, and it's basically to promote technical innovation and commercialization by small businesses from the federal government. The STTR is a very similar program. However, the key difference is in that one, you're also partnering with a US research institution. So predominantly universities or federal agencies that federal labs that you are going to be transferring the technology that was originally developed in those research institutions to a small business to promote commercialization of that idea. So the basic differences is in an STTR, you have to have one of those partners, and the partner has to do at least 30% of the work by budget and time. Whereas the SBIR can all be done within the small business. And in fact, with an SBIR, one of the big differences is that 2/3 of the work must be done within the small business. So you have 1/3 of it that could be sent out to either a partner like a research institution or a contractor, collaborator, whatever. But 2/3 of it must be done within that. With the STTR, 40% of it has to be done within the business, and then 30% within your partner research institution and an additional 30% to other places if you wanted. So that's kind of the main differences between the programs, but you'll notice I will mostly just say SBIR, but I'm usually referring to them. The important thing to note is that if the SBIR program was a VC, it would be one of the largest investors in small business around, because annually there's over $3.5 billion of non-dilutive funds to over 7,000 companies. So it's a substantial amount of money being invested into small businesses. And it's non-dilutive, which is really important. So unlike your VC funds where they're taking equity in the companies can maintain their equity with this program of grants or contracts through the federal government. The goals of the program is predominantly to stimulate technological innovation. They're very big on innovation. They want to see that the market advance. So they're willing to accept some of the risk of early stage companies in order to have a mechanism to promote innovation. A lot of times it's to align with federal needs. So each of the agencies that participate in this program have various goals and needs in mind. And so the program, the solicitations align with the needs that the government is looking for. They do want to increase the commercialization of that innovation. Often the early stages of the technologies have been developed in academic institutions from federal funds. So the government is also looking for a way to commercialize those funds that were initially developed with federal dollars through the SBIR program by offering incentives for businesses to commercialize the technology. They encourage participation and entrepreneurship by disadvantaged groups, so women owners, socially economically disadvantaged businesses, and hub zones, so the historically underutilized development areas. One important thing to remember is that this is a set-aside program. So while companies can get funding from other ways, such as your typical federal R01 grants, this is a set-aside program that only small businesses are competing for. So all of the funds are set aside by the different agencies and available only to a small business. When you look at the program and how it's run, it's actually a kind of somewhat complex system. There's a hierarchy of it, and there's a lot of different rules between the different agencies that are participating. So Congress enacts the legislation and sets the overall guidelines of the programs. That being that there's 3.25% of any agency that has a budget of a research budget of over 100 million must set aside that percentage for the small business program. So there's overall guiding principles, and the SBA is the one that administers the program. But then underneath that, there are actually 11 agencies that are participating in the SBIR program and 5 that are participating in the STTR. The STTR, you don't have to participate. The agencies don't participate unless they have a budget of over $1 billion. So within those 11 agencies, it's even a little bit more complex because underneath that, there's various branches. So if you're applying to the DoD for a SBIR contract, you're actually applying to one of their branches, the Army, the Navy, Air Force, so on. So there's different levels within them. And within each of these different levels of hierarchy, there are different rules within their program. Everybody kind of sets different requirements for applications, different budget rules within the different agencies. Some of them do them as grants, some of them do it as contracts. So there's a lot of differences between all of the different agencies that participate. And then, for instance, there's even more complexity if you're applying to the NIH, which is actually one branch of the Human Health and Services, so including with the FDA, CDC, and ACL. Within the NIH, there are 24 participating institutes underneath that. There's actually 27 institutes, but 24 participate. And within each of those, they have different requirements. So it becomes a complex program to navigate when all of the different agencies have different ways that they're administrating it with different rules, different requirements. I'm going to kind of show you just a little bit of that, but you can see it gets complex pretty fast. So you kind of have to have some knowledge of how to navigate the system, which is one of the reasons that the FAST Center is here to help, because we can help you navigate the system and figure out what's actually required and where the best place is for you to apply. Looking at companies that are eligible for the program. So first of all, you have to be a for-profit business. You have to be a business set up to actually apply. So meaning you need a tax identification number, you need a banking system. You have to be a legitimate formed business in order to apply for the program. It's 500 or fewer employees, although I would say it's 40% of the awards are made to companies with 9 or fewer employees. So it is really targeted towards the small business startups. And as you can kind of see, the funding kind of follows that. You do have to be located and primarily operating within the US. This is kind of one consideration. I've had some companies who have had collaborations where they were doing some of the work with international universities, and that doesn't really work for this program. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that it does need to happen within the US. You have to be at least 50% owned or operated by a US citizen or permanent resident, or owned and controlled by one small business that is at least 50% owned and operated by a US citizen. So there is the citizenship requirement of your owners. And then there are some different rules within VC investments. So it just kind of depends on the agency and your specific situation. That gets complicated, but a lot of times we can make it work depending on the agency you are applying to. The program is a 3-phase program. So each phase kind of increases with both the budget that you're awarded, as well as the time frame and the complexity. The phase 1 is called the feasibility phase. So this phase is the early stage. You're basically looking for a go, no-go answer of the technology. So it is a relatively short duration. Most of them are like 6 to 9 months, 12 months for STTRs, and a relatively small budget. So you're talking usually between 150 to 300,000, again, totally depending on the agency. But the goal of this is to have a very specific, very focused project that will give you an answer of whether or not this technology is going to be feasible to carry on for commercialization. So it's really important how you design it and what your aims are, so that you can set yourself up that if you show that this project was feasible in a phase 1, you could set yourself up for a phase 2 funding, which is when you get into the larger amounts of money. So now phase 2 you're talking about a development prototype type phase. It's usually a 2-year project. It's larger budgets. So you're usually talking of budgets of around $750,000 to $2 million for the 2 years. So a significant investment in a small business that can, really carry them quite a ways in their development phase. Excuse me. To get to this phase, you have had to have had a phase 1. So it is a progression going through the phases in order to qualify for them. And then following that, there are some opportunities for follow-on funding after phase 2. There's several programs that are called like a 2B, or various agencies have different names for them, but they are follow-on funding of an additional couple of years for an additional couple $1 million. Again, totally depending on the agency. So, in total, through one progression, one project, there are companies that have had, upwards of $4.5 million for the one project through the phase 2 phases. The third phase is actually a phase that's called the commercialization phase, and it's not direct funding. But one of the things that it can do is it can be a sole source procurement contracts. So if you are going through, especially the agencies that primarily fund the SBIR program through contracts, this is an opportunity for you to obtain a government sole source contract. So for your technology, you would be the sole source supplier, and that is done directly through the SBIR program. It doesn't happen as much with the granting agencies. However, there is often other commercialization tools and programs that they have available to help companies along in the various granting agencies. So while there's not a direct source of funding in this phase, it is a phase meant to help you towards the commercialization pathway. So if we look at who is actually getting the SBIR funding, this is a map of the states. And this is 2020 numbers. And you can see I have the kind of the top 20 states listed. We are number 14. Some of it, and you can kind of see from the color coding on the map too, some of it is as you expect. A lot of the coast states have the higher technology and you'd expect them to kind of be up there. Some of them aren't necessarily what you would expect. However, if we look, so one thing to point out too, as I said before, there's $3.8 billion in 2020 invested in 7,100 companies. And if you look at the breakdown of where that funding is coming from, you can see that the largest budget, and so the largest funding is from the DoD, which is 1.8 billion. And if you look back at the states, a lot of the states, so for instance, Ohio, that is higher up there, that are getting greater amounts of funding, do have military bases. And for a lot of them, if you look at a lot of the top 10, about half of their funding is coming from the DoD, just simply because it is the largest budget. So it's the largest funding agency of the SBIR program. So of the 11 agencies that participate in the SBIR, like I said, there are 5 that participate in the STTR program because those are the 5 largest budgets. So that's the DoD, NIH, DOE, NASA, and NSF. So those are the largest budgets, and that's where the largest amount of the funding is coming from. If you look at Illinois' funding a little bit more specifically, I have it broken down so that you can see for both SBIR awards or STTR awards, there was 75 and 40 phase 1 and 43 phase 2, and for STTR 20 and 7 for phase 1 and phase 2 funding, for a total of about $77 million. This again was 2020's statistics. However, it's been pretty consistent for the last number of years. If you look to see where the funding in Illinois is coming from, unlike where I said some of the states that have military bases, over half of their funding is coming from the DoD. Actually, our largest funding is coming from the NIH. Then the second, of course, are the agencies with the largest budgets are all kind of next. So DoD, DOE, NASA, and NSF accordingly is primarily where our funding is coming from. But it is interesting that our largest is coming from NIH in Illinois. So looking at how easy is it to get, what are the success rates of actually getting one of these applications if you submit a proposal? So these are some statistics of the number of awards. I think it's dating back to 1990 in the phase 1 and phase 2, and then the orange lines show the success rate. So what percentage of awards were given as response to the number of proposals submitted. You can see that for the most part, they're pretty steady. And on average, phase 1 is generally around 16. It varies by agency. Some agencies are higher, some agencies are lower, but on average, about 16% of the proposals applied for in a given year are awarded an SBIR award. For phase 2, it goes up much higher. You're looking at 55%. And again, this is because I talked about how you go through the progression. So all of these have already had a phase 1 award, and then you're showing feasibility. So there's a lot higher percent once you've had an initial award of a phase 1, the percentage of getting a phase 2 is considerably higher. And again, I think I mentioned this before, but most of the winning companies do have between 40% have between 2 to 9 employees, and actually even higher than that. There's very few that are close to the 500 level. So most of the money is targeted at relatively small startup businesses. I said one of the goals of the program was also to foster and encourage business participation and participation in this program by socioeconomical, socioeconomical disadvantaged businesses. So looking at that, The numbers have not increased a lot over the years, but that is one of the goals of the FAST Center as well, is to try to increase the diversity of the businesses that are obtaining some of this funding. So you can kind of see here, women-owned businesses, socio-disadvantaged businesses, and Hub Zone, which primarily is rural for the most part. And the percentage of phase 1 awards to these various groups by agency. You can see that they vary somewhat by agency, but they, for the most part, are 20% or less, and they would like to see that improve. So, that would be one thing I would say is I know some of you have more direct access with some of these groups, and we would love to partner with you and help provide some training and awareness for this program to increase the number of participants in some of these different groups. So given all this, given the SBIR program, what are some reasons that a client, one of your companies, would like to obtain this SBIR funding? And there's kind of a top 5 reasons that I have that are beneficial for companies that might want to obtain this funding. Number 1 is it's undiluted funding. So they can obtain this funding and still maintain all of the equity in their company. So, that's obviously a very good advantage for them. However, other advantages are things like validation and guidance. So all of the SBIR applications are reviewed by subject matter experts. So they are sent to review panels to be reviewed. And if you have gotten one, that gives you some validation of your technology, that the experts in the field all agreed that this is a good technology to pursue and that your idea had validation. And so that often helps you obtain other funding, because then they can see, okay, by expert fields, this has already been validated that this is a good idea. So that's often an advantage. Many people used to be worried about participating with the government, that you would lose control of your IP, but that is not the case with the SBIR program. You do maintain your IP and your control. They're very careful about building that into all of their program. There is commercialization help, and like I said, with many of the contract situations, there's follow-on funding. You can become a sole source contractor and have the government as your client and continue to provide product to the government going forward. Also, one of the big things is it reduces risk for other investors. Oftentimes, companies that are applying for this program are at a very early stage with a lot of inherent risk in their idea. They still are, right at the feasibility stage and don't know for sure that this is going to work. And oftentimes that's too risky for a lot of the investors to want to be involved at that point. So this is a way to reduce some of that risk, to do the initial feasibility studies, the initial development work using the government funds, which would then attract other types of investments following that. Okay, so looking at the SBIR application process, as I said, it varies a lot by agency. So some agencies have one solicitation per year with one deadline per year. So there's really only one opportunity per year to submit your application. Other agencies have what's called rolling applications. So throughout the year, they kind of have a rolling deadline, and you can pretty much submit it anytime throughout the year. Some of them do what's like a pre-submission. So for instance, the NSF requires you to submit a 3-page pitch initially to the NSF with your idea. And then they usually get back to you pretty fast, usually within 2 to 3 weeks or so. The NSF will get back to you and say, okay, we really like your idea. Now we're going to invite you to submit a full proposal. They're right now one of the only ones that's doing that, although the NSF tends to lead a lot of this program. So kind of things that they come out with tend to follow in other agencies. Other agencies have several deadlines throughout the year. They have 3 or 4 deadlines. They have various solicitations. So for instance, the NIH has what's called this general omnibus that they put out, which is just kind of a list of pretty much almost any kind of human health topic that there is by the different institutes and what they're interested in. But then periodically throughout the year, they will have specific solicitations for very specific needs of technologies that they're looking for. And those might not have the same deadlines as their general omnibus deadlines. They might be different. Then you're looking at contract situations, and contract situations are very specific, very strict requirements of what their solicitations are. They're looking for very specific technologies, and you respond to that at very specific times. So the solicitation and application process varies greatly by agency, but there is ways to search. So you can search both. If you look on sbir.gov, there's ways to just do a general search for general topics. There's also ways to search previous awards, which is something that we can help you with. So you can put in keywords for topics related to your technology, and it will show you other companies that have received awards for those areas. And that kind of gives you a guidance as to which agencies might be interested in your technology and where you might want to apply. As I said, there's just a lot of difference in the variations of how each program is managed. I talked about that some do grants and some do contracts. Predominantly the Department of Defense and Homeland Security and Department of Transportation, some of those are predominantly contracts. And like I said, there's a little bit less flexibility in that situation because they have very specific needs and you're submitting them as a contract with very specific deliverables at the end of the contract. The grant situation, which is like your NSF and DOE, are a lot more flexible. They have general areas of interest that they're interested in, but then they're also looking for you to submit your specific technology and how that can apply to the general areas that they're looking for some solutions in. So there is a little bit more flexible. Neither is good or bad. They're just different in the way that they're run, and you have to be aware of the differences when you're applying and how you're dealing with each of the different situations. I talked about risk. Some of the agencies are really promoting high risk. So NSF, I would say, is the one that is very into the innovation and high risk. They will accept ideas with very little preliminary research, but they want to see something highly innovative, something that's really going to move the market. Contrasting, the NIH pretty much usually, they say it's not a requirement, but they pretty much usually require some preliminary evidence. They don't want quite as much risk. They want to see that your idea has some merit. While it doesn't have to be proven, obviously, because that's the point of this grant, they want to see some evidence that, it might be a good idea to try this. So that's just kind of some of the variation of it. I talked about how some of them do the pre-application, like the NSF, and the differences in the submissions. Also commercialization. Some of them at a phase 1 want to see a very detailed commercialization plan. They want to see that you've laid your plans out very specifically and you understand completely what the market is and your pathway towards commercialization. Others of them just want to see some basic information, that you have a basic understanding of the market you're interested, you have a basic understanding of the customers and your pathway to get there. So it varies between the different agencies. The review process also varies. Some of them are specifically a scientific expert panel. Some of them have industry, so more looking at the commercialization of your technology and the business side. Some of them are a 2-tiered review where you go through a panel of experts and then you go through a agency review. So again, it just varies a lot between the specific agencies. But for all of them, there's kind of some major components that they're looking for in the application. One thing is you do have to do registrations for all of them. So as we are dealing with the government, the registrations can take several weeks. So we always tell clients that if they are interested in doing it, please have them start early. We are here to help with the registration. Some of them are pretty straightforward. Some of them are a little more complex. Then you'll need your objectives of what you're planning to propose with the project. You need to understand the significance, innovation, and technical details. So you need to understand what the problem is and how you're addressing it and how you're moving the market ahead, how you're being innovative. Of course, you've got your budget and the justification. Your team is very key. You need to have a good team assembled of the experts and why you are the ones qualified to work on this technology and bring it to market. Like I said, the commercialization path kind of varies, but they expect you to have an understanding of the market and your competitors, your path to market, and what the regulatory pathways might be for your particular technology. They do want to know that you have an IP plan, so you don't have to have your IP completely in place, but they want to know that you have a plan and you know how you're planning to protect your IP. And then letters of support are actually really important. A lot of times they really want to see that there are real people with real money willing to invest in your company. So they want to know that there are people out there who really care about your technology and what you're proposing. So the letters of support can often be a key portion that sometimes people overlook of your application. This is just kind of a general graph giving you an idea of timeline. So you'll want to prepare for your application and submit it. Following that, there's a review of, just to give you an idea of usually on average 3 to 5 months or so where they're reviewing it. Towards the end of the reviewing, if you are going to be selected for award, they will usually come back and negotiate with you. So we always tell clients that even if you don't get your budget completely right in the beginning, that's okay, because they're always going to come back and negotiate you. Usually, as long as it's not completely unrealistic, they're not going to reject you just simply because of a problem with the budget. They're going to make adjustments and negotiate that with you. But so usually I would say 3 to 5 months following submission is when you will hear and you can start working on your award. The one thing I wanted to point out with this is, so then you're going to be working on your phase 1. It's really hard to submit a phase 2 until you have most of the work done on the phase 1, because again, in order to get your phase 2, you have to show that you were able to prove the feasibility of this technology. So that pretty much entails that you've done most of the work. However, there is going to be then, once you submit a phase 2, another review process, in which time there is a funding gap. So that's one thing to make companies aware of, is that there's generally this time where there's several months where you don't have either a phase 1 or phase 2 funding coming in, that you'll have to figure out how you can support that at that time. Just an overview of what I always tell clients for preparing an application. It's a long process. Generally, I recommend around 10 weeks to prepare for an SBIR STTR submission. Early on, you're going to want to be reviewing and be in contact with the agency. You're going to want to be getting your registrations done and identifying your partners and having conversations and talking to them, getting the letters that you needed. At about 4 weeks out, you should have an additional draft with pretty much, I mean, you're going to have some holes and things still need to fill in, but you should have pretty much most of your pieces in place at about 4 weeks before the deadline. Then you're going to want to have a complete draft by about 2 weeks so that you have time for people to review it. And that's one of the areas that the FAST Center can help with. We can review your draft and be a set of eyes to say, oh, hey, you have a hole here, you really need to address this. And you want to do that plenty of times so that you have time to make those changes and have time to submit. You also don't want to wait until the last hour to submit, because too many times I have seen people have problems with the actual online submission process itself. There can be problems. And so if you're submitting 3 hours before the deadline, that's often very stressful and not always a good result. Okay, so switching to companies that are a good candidate for the SBIR STTR. So how you can identify companies that would be a good candidate to promote having them apply for funding. One, you're looking for innovation. So is it something that is advancing the field? You don't want something that's just building a better mousetrap. Those are not generally very well received. If it is something that's an incremental improvement on something, it has to be a large enough incremental improvement that it's going to change people to change their behavior. So it has to be something that really kind of advances where that current product was at, that would totally change you to want to purchase it for different reasons. So it has to be something innovative. It has to be something with commercial potential. Oftentimes we see people who are still kind of at a basic research stage, and you're not really ready for the SBR yet. You want to be at a stage where it's product oriented, not just general basic research questions, something that you are moving towards a commercial product. It needs to be technical, it needs to align with the agency's goals. So you need to figure out where your technology fits with the various agencies and how it's solving some of the government's needs. Because again, that's one of the reasons that they created this program, as a way to access the innovation of small businesses to address some of the federal needs that they are looking towards. You need to have a strong team. You need to have a team that has both your technical experts in place. So you know the technology, you have the ability to carry out the research. There's strong reasons why you should lead this, but you also have to have a little bit of business help as well. It doesn't necessarily always have to be employees. It could be advisory boards. It could be, collaborators, contractors, but you do need to have some help getting the business going, because they will have requirements of you once you receive a reward. This is kind of an overview of technical readiness that we have. So if you're looking at level 1 versus level 9, level 1 is when you're at just the basic research stage. So you're just asking basic general research stage. Level 9 is to where you've already completely developed the product, you're ready to launch it, you're at the commercialization stage, you have revenue coming in. So what we generally advise for people applying for a phase 1 is that you're somewhere in that 3 to 5 stage where you're looking at feasibility. So you already have some preliminary evidence. You've already done a lot of the basic research. You're ready to move it towards that product commercialization stage, but you're looking to prove feasibility or early development stage. So you kind of want to be in that early stage. Whereas a phase 2, now you're kind of later development and demonstration of your actual product. We kind of call that phase 1 stage like a sweet spot, because you don't want to be too early where you're still at basic research, because again, this is definitely geared towards commercialization of a product. It needs to be product oriented and it needs to be a feasibility study. But you also don't want to be too far along. If you have already done a lot of the development work and you've already shown that things are going to work, and you're just making minor development pathways, they're going to say, well, this really isn't innovative anymore. You've worked it all out and you should be ready for other funding. So it's kind of too late for us. So there's kind of that sweet spot where companies want to be at an early stage of research with their technology. Some of the key traits we're looking for in companies that want to submit an application. We're looking for innovative technology, again, something that's going to advance the field. It's ready for feasibility. Another thing is customer demand. This is one thing that sometimes companies don't do a good enough job. You need to understand who the customer is for your product and what their needs are and how you're addressing them. So again, they're looking for people that are real people with real money to spend that would want to buy your technology. So you need to know who those customers are and what their needs are. Going on with that, you need to know what the market is, and you need to know what the broad market is and what segment of the market you actually can address. You also need to understand your competition. We've had many clients who have had feedback from the reviews of not really knowing who their competitors are or how they fit in. So you need to have an understanding of that. You need to understand your business development and how you're going to continue to support that with additional funds. Not all of your funds are going to be coming from SBR, so you need to have kind of a plan. They want to see that you are a viable business that are going to be able to carry this forward. Again, you have to have a strong team with well-rounded experience. They don't mind, most of the time we have seen with the SBR applications, they don't mind if you have gaps. They know that this is geared towards small businesses. They know that you don't have every role that you will eventually need filled. What they do like is if you can identify those gaps yourself. So they see that you realize that you're going to need some help in marketing. You're going to need some help in business development. And that you have a plan for addressing that. It doesn't have to be right away. It doesn't have to be right now. You don't have to have all those things in place, but they want to see that you understand that you know what you're going to need and you know how to get there. They want to see that you have realistic goals and plans. We have seen a lot of companies with feedback of this, that what they were proposing wasn't realistic for the scope of what the program is. So again, this is a relatively small budget feasibility for phase one. They want to see that that's kept realistic, and that even your technology, if you go, they want you to be innovative, but they don't want you to see you to go so far that it's, you know, out of the scope of reality for the reviewers. And then they again want to see that it aligns with the agency's needs. So they want it to fit in with the needs that the government has. Okay, so on the opposite side of that, here are some common mistakes that we see and things that we try to help companies avoid. One common thing is that they've started too late. So they don't have time to gather all the information. Like I said, it's a fairly detailed process. It's not the writing itself, it's making sure you have all the pieces that the government is requiring you to show during your application. So it takes time to assemble all that. When you start with only 2 weeks before the deadline, it's really hard to try to put that together. Another is just a lack of awareness. So it can be a lack of awareness of a lot of things. They don't understand their customers or their needs. They don't understand the market. They don't understand that they're not really ready yet, that they're not far enough along to be ready for a feasibility study, that they still have some additional things they need to do. They don't understand the requirements of the program. So a lot of these are things that we can help clients with, at least help them understand what their gaps are and kind of what they need to do to prepare themselves to be able to submit an application. Another is a lack of information, and this is definitely an area that we want to help with. We can provide training for all of the requirements for the program, and you know what they need to provide, what they need to do. But there are a lot of companies that just didn't understand all of the requirements of the agencies. Another area is not being innovative enough. I've kind of talked about this before, but again, you really are promoting innovation in this grant. So they want to see that you are definitely pushing the market. And I talked about this, not having a realistic budget or goals or timeline for your project. So all that being said, I wanted to spend the last part of it talking a little bit about the Illinois FAST Center itself and what we can provide and how we can help your clients. The FAST Center is a federal and state technology partner program. It's a federal government grant. It was reestablished in 2010, and there are annually 24 FAST centers nationwide. There's only allowed to be one per state. Illinois has had one in the past, however, not for the last previous years. And then in last year, the Enterprise Works received the FAST grant from the state. And so this is our first year administering here. Our goals for the program is to increase the numbers and the quality of proposals in the state. So we're here to help any clients throughout the state with either direct assistance or training or outreach to make more people aware of it so that we can increase participation in the SBIR program across Illinois. We are also interested in increasing participation from underserved groups, so such as the women or socioeconomically disadvantaged groups or underrepresented hub zones. So we are looking at partnering and increasing both the awareness and training to increase participation amongst those groups. Like I said, we primarily do it through outreach, training, and one-on-one assistance. This is just a look at where our website is. You can find information about any of our programs on our website. So here's our resource where you can find all the information that we offer at the FAST Center. But looking at specifically what some of our services are, we offer training in the forms of SBIR 101 seminars and sprints, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in just a minute. But those are kind of some detailed training programs that we offer. And again, all of these are available to anybody throughout the state of Illinois. And actually, our seminars, we often have, we're listed on the SBIR.gov. So we have people from across the nation actually attend some of the training webinars because those are just free for people to sign up and attend. But then we also do provide one-on-one assistance. So we will provide technical assistance through office hours or one-on-one with various companies. And I will tell you how to sign up for that. But we're happy to help because, as I think I've showed you, the program is fairly complex and a lot of things are specific to the individual company's requirements. And it really is beneficial for them to have somebody with experience help guide them through a lot of these intricacies of the agencies. We also have a newsletter. If anybody is interested in receiving the newsletter, we provide information about the program and timely things throughout the year. So if you're interested in signing up for the newsletter, feel free to just email me. I think my email is on here, but feel free to email me and we're happy to get you set up with the newsletter. Our SBR 101s are held monthly. They are webinars the last Wednesday of every month at noon. And they're just information on general SBR topics for training. We kind of rotate the topics. So we cover a lot of different things. Some of them are more just a general 101 as to what agencies participate, the kind of the differences between the agencies, why you should get involved and how to apply. Some of them are more specific. So like looking at the two upcoming I have listed here, our August one is kind of a high level of an NIH proposal of kind of what's required and kind of the specific sections. It applies to more than just NIH, it'll apply to a lot of the granting. It's just kind of a good overview of a lot of the granting type agencies. What are some of the specific parts of the application that are required? And then our September one is actually a post-award management, which is another thing that we can help out with. I mentioned that after you receive an award, the government has all kinds of requirements for timekeeping and reporting and grant management, your budget management processes. And those are things that we can help you out too. We can help a business get set up with to meet the requirements of the awarding agencies. You can find some of our previous seminars on YouTube. I don't know if they're all there, but a lot of them are. If you look up our playlist at the Illinois Research Park under the FAST Center playlist, you can find some of the previous 101s for some general information. Or like I said, we do have them every month, and on our website, you can just sign up for free to register for any of these 101 seminars. Additionally, we provide training that we call sprints, and those are our more in-depth training. Those are ones that we partner with other organizations. So if there are partner organizations out there, universities, or any of your P-TECH centers or anything like that that have a group of teams that are interested and are focused on a specific area, we will put together a sprint training for you. It's a 4-week, more in-depth focused training session. Generally, we like to focus on a particular area, topic, or agency requirement so that we can provide really focused and meaningful training to them. And what it does is we have a weekly webinar where we go over various aspects of the proposal, kind of in depth, walk them through it, what they need to do, give them tips, help them out. And then we also have assignments that are covering specific elements of that proposal. Those assignments they do weekly, and then the instructors will provide individualized personal feedback for them. So kind of the goal of this is to walk them through their proposal preparation in a 4-week session. So by the time somebody has come through this, they're fairly prepared at that point. We've gotten really good feedbacks from companies that have participated in this program that they felt really prepared at the end of this, that they could submit a competitive proposal with all the extra help. And so it has seemed to be a really good training format for us. When we do these, we have applications for companies to participate, and we try to pick out the 8 to 10 most ready companies to actually participate in the full program. And then we have any of the other companies that we don't accept into that cohort, they're available to audit the webinar sessions. A lot of them we've heard feedback from as well that it really helps them to identify areas that they weren't quite ready yet. So they weren't quite ready to submit theirs. They might have thought that they were ready to submit an SBR, but then when they listen to the webinars, they're like, oh, we really have a gap here that we need to work on first. So that's kind of helpful for them too. So that way we're providing very in-depth focus training for ones as they're preparing to submit their proposals. Additionally, we offer technical assistance, and again, this is for anyone throughout the state of Illinois. They can apply on our website and we will set up a meeting with them to determine what their specific needs are, learn more about their technology, and how we can help them with their proposal. We have a team of consultants, each of us having over 10 years specifically of helping teams to obtain the SBIR, STTR funding. So we have a lot of really knowledgeable consultants who have been working for years with this specific program, and we understand the ins and outs. We understand, like I said, there's a lot of complexities of variations between the agencies, and we can help walk the teams through them so that they have a much more competitive proposal. We offer assistance with things such as matching your funding opportunities. So I mentioned there's ways of searching and trying to figure out where the best place for you to submit your proposal to. Some guidance on what they actually needed to do to prepare their proposals, some budgeting help. There's always a lot of questions around that. We help review their proposals, and then we do offer the post-grant management too. So after you've obtained an award, we can help you set yourself up to meet the requirements of the agencies. So these are kind of some of the services that we offer. And to get started, you just need to go to the FAST Center website and fill out the form. And we will get right back to you to set up a one-on-one meeting. So if you have clients who are interested, if you just direct them to our site and tell them to fill out the assistance form, we would be happy to set up meetings with them and work with them. Like I said, we're often happy to partner with the different agencies as well, especially if you have a cohort of people, that we can help set up some training for you. We're happy to do that as well. One last thing that I wanted to mention is that there was some new legislation that was just passed this March. Illinois now has a matching program for companies obtaining funding. It's up to 50% and up to $50,000. If you obtain a phase 1 award, Illinois will match it to that amount, which is great. We're hoping, we don't know the specifics of this program yet. We're still waiting for all the details for eligibility and application, but we're hoping that that will provide some funds for some areas that the SBIR program doesn't cover. The DCEO will be administering that, and we will keep everybody updated. So that will definitely, as soon as we have details of the program, that will be in our newsletter, and we will be reaching out to people with how they could obtain the funding, and we will be here to help them obtain that funding as well once those details are released. And I think with that, that's about all I had. So I am happy to take any questions that anybody has at this time.
Are there any questions? We don't have any in the chat at this point, but feel free to take yourselves off mute and ask your question of Shelley. Great presentation, came directly from Rita, and I agree wholeheartedly, Rita. This has been a great presentation. Thank you so much, Shelley.
Very happy.
A lot of really good information came. Go ahead.
I have a quick question, Shelley. Are there any alternative things for, like, if a company's already manufactured their innovative product and they didn't know about SBIR in the past, are there any opportunities for marketing their products?
So yeah, it's hard to obtain the funding through marketing, but sometimes there are, so you're not limited to one project. So sometimes if there are spin out projects from their technology, there are often side projects that you could get involved in and obtain funding through that way and kind of go through that pathway. But that is one of the feedbacks that we see is, if you're kind of beyond that stage, it's hard to go backwards.
Okay, thank you.
They're really trying to help at the early innovation is kind of what this program is definitely geared towards. So that's who they're focused on.
Great, that's true. Shelley, what I would like to see is a little bit more talk in the future about how we all three programs can actually work together collaboratively. How the PTACs will actually work with businesses on a regular basis to help them identify government contracting opportunities, and we have been allowed to work with SBIR, STTR grants as well. and how the SBDCs can work with the client as well, because a lot of these individuals who are going down this path may not even be bona fide businesses yet. They may just be in the developmental stage. So how the SBDC can help them with the foundational things, with starting their business, getting their things together from that standpoint. And you can help with the technical aspects of the actual SBIR. I really would like to talk more about that and develop more strategies on how the programs can work together, because I can see a synergy of client working with any different programs at different phases and different stages of the process.
Yeah, I completely agree. Your agencies, the PTAC agencies, SPDCs are the ones that have more direct, contact with the clients at earlier stages. So partnering with you, that's why I said we are very interested in partnering with a lot of you to be able to bring awareness of the program to the clients who may not be aware of what the program is or what it has to offer them. And so from that aspect, we are happy to partner with anybody to offer training. And like I said, whether it's early stage training of kind of a 101 level to bring some awareness of what the program is to people, or you realize, hey, we have, a group of companies who are, pretty far along and could really use some help, we're happy to set up those sprints to help really do a detailed focused training to help them along with their application process. But yeah, you guys have the direct access to a lot of the clients. So we love to partner with any of the different agencies to promote that.
Great, thank you.
As well as referrals. I mean, anytime you have a company who is interested in the program and, has some questions or need help, this is a free program to them. So, encourage them to reach out and sign up, and we're happy to offer whatever assistance that we can to them.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Any other questions? Any other questions out there? Well, if there are none, well, you have Shelley's information, and everyone can feel free to reach out to her independently. But this has been a phenomenal session, and I really thank you for your time, Shelley, and the offer of Olive Branch to partner with us, and we will take you up on that. I know
I hope you will.
as the PTAC program is actually being transitioned to part of the Department of Defense that is more innovative, and they're really focusing on innovation, technology, and diversity. And so we're looking at diversity and inclusion. So we're looking at non-traditional entities that to bring them into the industrial base. And so you are going to definitely be a great partner for us in that.
And that would be, a great help for us, because like I said, we are looking for access to the companies that are out there. And one of our goals is to try to promote diversity as well. So we would love to reach out and offer training and assistance to anyone that we can. So yeah, please feel free, anybody that would like to contact me, and I'd be happy to work with you and set something up if we can.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't think we have any more questions. Well, there's another one. Great presentation. That was from Kelly. So thank you. Thank you again. So I think we're good. You can probably start recording at this point, Chris, and we can go ahead on and kind of wrap things up.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present.
All right, thanks, Shelley. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.